Listen, you're the one he wants. If we see him again, you run.
You're a shooting missionary. You know that. Joder, not this guy!
Father Mendez is an unnaturally tall and intimidating figure. Quiet, to the point, and most importantly, very obedient. More interesting than all of those things is a tiny detail of his false eye. It explains Mendez more than a file or cutscene ever could. BITORES MENDEZ single-handedly destroyed the lives of the Valdelobos village and its residents. They all killed each other, starved, or worse, became useful experiments to Lord Sadler. And it was Father Mendez who welcomed Lord Sadler into the village, agreed to fall under the Los Iluminados cult, and was given a horrendous amount of power. In short, Mendez turned a blind eye to all of his people. As a result, they suffered endlessly. When did this face turn happen? What was the justification behind it? And who truly is BITORES MENDEZ?
Your blood has accepted the gift.
Mendez shows just how disconnected he is from the current situation, and it's obvious because he lets Leon live. A pretty dumb move. Seeing Leon's infection is further evidence for him that Sadler's plan is going great, and as we all know, that's far from the truth. It's BITORES' short-sightedness that leads to his demise, and this is what makes his character quite tragic. Given how many opportunities BITORES had to be a good and careful leader. The father's portrait file shows a priest doing what we hardly see any of throughout the village. He shares a smile. The old, grainy picture contains a caption, "Watch over the village in my stead, and may smiles always find you in photographs." A nice thought, as the senior priest passes the village's responsibilities onto Mendez. Well, I think these next photos will show you how that went. The villagers have suffered immensely under Mendez's so-called stead, and you can feel that through their emotionless expressions. Inside Mendez's villa, a psychotic amount of photographs fill up a wall in the dining room, with various insignias etched into them. To me, it's clear as day that he descended into madness. I mean, just look at this wall. I feel that the pressure of responsibility finally got to BITORES, and he began to implement his crazy ideas. He stuck too closely to the word of God and ancient practices, performing sacrifices of villagers in exchange for crops. Just look at how the two officers were essentially sacrificed, although I'd wager they were killed not for crops and food, but as punishment. Their killings were brutal, being burned alive, the other decapitated, and turned into fish food.
What was that?
These people became animals under Mendez's rule. His people slowly died. The once thriving village eventually decayed. That is, of course, until Osmond Sadler appeared. And to a desperate BITORES MENDEZ, his prayers were answered. At last, flesh of our flesh, blood of our blood, give thanks and rejoice. There's plenty of blood mentioned here, as in Las Plagas blood, a sacred bond between everyone and everything that joins this cult. Yes, even outsiders like Leon. And yet, there is a clear separation at play.
Not too shabby. Someone has shown up their neighbors.
No matter how much of a religious zealot the Big Cheese may seem to be, he still thinks quite highly of himself. look at the place he has for himself, and then look at the utter misery the rest of the village is going through. It's an insane difference. It makes me suspicious that all of his God talk is all for show. Does he even really believe the stuff he preaches? Or is he just that delusional? Either way, Mendez has a job to do to further please his Lord Saddler and bring in new devout followers.
Your soul requires cleansing. Come, child.
Ashley, run! Close one.
That final look that Mendez gives speaks volumes. In a way, he admires Leon and Ashley's bond, as it is not tied through blood but their sheer will to survive and escape. Forcefully planting a seed, as disgusting as that sounds, is really the only bond that BITORES knows. It's the only way he can connect with people outside of himself. That and the crazy ass religion that imprisons his villagers. The look also gives me the sense that the chief knows that it's time to act, and in doing so, the end for him is near. Also, think of the way BITORES refers to everyone.
Come, child.
Yes, it's pretty common for priests and leaders to refer to their followers as children. It can be viewed as a common practice, but I think there's a different meaning here. Everyone is a child in the eyes, or eye, of the chief, as in everyone is below him. Again, that explains his giant manor in the village. Many children outside of that manor were not so lucky. The Village Records Volume 1 is a file written by a child living in the village, instructed to do so by an elder. The file states, there is a young boy who lives in the cabin by the lake with his grandfather. It seems that his mother was called to heaven upon his birth. Thankfully, it seems that most kids were born in good health, but without the proper procedures and medicine, their mothers were not so lucky. The boy's grandfather has fallen ill and his condition worsens every day. The boy worries terribly about him, and there are murmurs of a madness among the villagers. And already the downfall had begun. Even before Saddler's arrival, the village was in disarray. People would die for the most benign illnesses. Families were torn apart. The final page states, it was a terrible night. Everyone stood around the cabin and watched as it burned to the ground. The boy looked on without saying a word. Even as dawn broke, he didn't move a muscle. The next day, he was gone. This is the mess that BITORES Mendes had to turn to. This is the insane level of tragedy that he was in charge of, day to day. Why wouldn't he have gone mad, with all that pressure of families dying all around him? The answer is simple. All he had was faith. And for that faith, BITORES would crush anything in its way.
Cease your pointless struggling. Abandon your body to the will of our God.
You're a shitty missionary. You know that.
Oh, Almighty, grant me the strength to crush your enemies.
There is no word better to describe Mendez's actions here and lines than the word senseless, absent. To him, there is no life without the will of his God. If you really think about it, he's not even really talking to the actual people in front of him. He's always talking to this supposed higher being, praising it, or in this case, asking for more strength. Leon's line here,
You're a shitty missionary. You know that.
also pretty much confirms his opinion on BITORES. Leon has seen his high and mighty estate, and he thinks he's full of shit. This location is actually a rundown defunct butchery, In fact, most of the facilities are just remnants of a once thriving village. This photo, pictured in 1992, is captioned, "The long-awaited ironworks," is yet another example of life before the Plaga's infection. Yes, the photo is pretty creepy looking because it's in black and white and grainy, but in fact, this is as happy as you'll ever see the village. Volume 2 of the Village Records expands on this, stating, "The ironworks was only built a year ago, but has already merged well with the village. Our sickles and knives shine like never before. The 2 fish we got from the deal will eat almost anything and are breeding well. The fish farm in the swamp is also making excellent progress. Since I opened up the village to the outside, we have prospered, and the people are happier. Smiles have even started to appear on their faces." Now take this with a grain of salt, since these files seem to be written by different villagers. This one in particular says, "I opened up the village to the outside." It's very possible that these are the words of the smiling priest. In fact, he can be seen opening a gate within the final credits of the game. Things seemed to be looking up for the Valdalobos village. Even the kids looked happy as they played in the farm. They were receiving food and high-quality production, new faces, people linked up to join their cause. The final page is where it all goes wrong. A strange group of black-robed people descended upon the village from the castle and raised an ominous flag with a spider-like insignia upon it. After preaching about salvation and forgiveness, they injected us with something they claim will cure us of madness. Can they be trusted? And that was the final straw that seemingly placed everyone in a death pact with Los Illuminados. Just like Venom, they infiltrated everything and everyone, including the village chief, who had no choice but to give in to this god. In short, they all became monsters, inside and out.
Hasta luego.
God, I thank you for your gift.
An explosion causes BITORES to show off his true colors and monster form. His prayers have been answered, so he shows his graciousness. I mean, after destroying the lives of innocent villagers, it's the least his god can do for him. He's been an obedient lapdog for the better part of a decade, and yet he's dumbfounded when Leon and Ashley continue to disobey.
We share the same blood. Why do you resist?
"We share the same blood. Why do you resist?" is textbook cult leader talk, and it shows that Mendez is completely unchanged. He will continue to believe in Los Illuminados until his impending doom.
Repent, child. Burn in his flame. Die, die, you will die.
And there lies the so-called leader of the Valdalobos village, driven into madness by all the death around him, and driven into desperation by the snakes that nipped at his gates. Well, that rhymed. Throughout his final stand, Mendez was quite adamant on punishing Leon's supposed sins. He continuously orders Leon to repent, or that there will be absolutely no mercy for all the grief he'd caused to Saddler's plans. His final orders prove just that, stating, "I am willing to make any and all sacrifices for the sake of the righteous faith. My devout believers, build me an impregnable fortress, and make sure any heathen foolish enough to trespass pays for their wicked sins in blood." But this time, it would be the chief himself that would pay in blood. Finally, after all of his fallacies, his lies and betrayal towards his people, BITORES is finally dead. In a form of poetic justice, his fake eye pops out, no longer being able to deceive anyone. And therein lies the question. Mendez's final words desperately call out to his Lord Saddler. That anonymous, shadowy figure that arrived seemingly out of nowhere was in his final thoughts. Did Mendes use Sadler's influence for power, for evil, or did he actually believe in Los Illuminados? I'll let you be the judge. What we do know for sure is that he was influenced just enough to let this mess happen in the first place. BITORES MENDEZ, deceived, desperate, and evil.
Remember, keep your eyes open.
Well, thank you so much for checking out this video. I hope you enjoyed it. What did you think of BITORES MENDEZ's character in the remake as compared to the original? Do you feel he was more intimidating, less intimidating? Let me know. Don't forget to like and subscribe for more horror lore, lists, and mysteries. Have an awesome rest of your day, and as always, stay single.